meeting. We'll skip item B, whoever, if you all have an agenda. Item B, oath of offices on that, we'll skip that. We don't need that. Before we go to election of officers, we always receive, the commissioners and the chief received a letter from Michelle Stiles and the secretary. Michelle's been on the board for 8 years. Michelle will move from Saracen to Nanaimo on the island.
Won't even pay the ferry costs.
Therefore, she is unfortunately resigning from the office here. I think that's a great loss. Michelle really served us well. Very pleasant gal to have around, and a great personality. On behalf of the board, I want to thank you for all your time here and the constant phone calls and neighborhood. And your cooperation greatly accepted and recognized. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So she'll be with us one more meeting.
One more meeting, yes, and hopefully we will have somebody to replace her. And Michelle has faithfully acknowledged that she would have out of this first meeting next month. That will be our last meeting, and hopefully we'll have somebody else to take by then. We have somebody in mind, and we'll talk about that later. Okay. Anything from the public?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I can catch my breath.
Yeah.
I was speaking with a community member the last couple of days who had some concerns about a lack of timeliness of medical response because of problems with the pagers. And I know that this has been brought up a number of times in the past. Could you just update us on what the situation with the pagers is? Has the repeater been involved? And does there continue to be a concern about getting people to respond because of technical issues?
All right,
So
thank you.
Okay. It's on my chief's report,
Yeah.
if you can wait.
You bet. Absolutely.
I
That's
was
perfect.
going to say the same thing.
Awesome.
Explain that.
That's right.
Election of officers. Okay. Let me ask my two fellow commissioners what they have in mind, any changes.
Well, I
Jeff?
think things are going very well. I would support a slate of promotion for chairman and my friend over here for vice chairman.
You don't want to continue as vice chairman?
I would not mind if it was the wish of the board, but the vice chairman is handy to have if the chairman is lacking responsibility or over-traveled, and that certainly isn't the case here.
Oh, yeah, Jeff.
The,
Oh, yeah. Who knows? I mean, the ambulance might be coming up in my, I do, so. Commissioner Riffle.
I agree, everything is moving smoothly. I think it's important that we keep the most experienced member of our board as chairman, and that's Bill Mercy. And Jeff suggests vice chairmanship. I'd be happy to take it. We sort of trade it off probably. But anyhow, that's fine.
Okay, I'll give you my opinion. I accept your statement. I think it's safe for me to say that we have a fairly strong and a very healthy leadership here in this organization. And I think continue that. And I think I have to agree, I have the most experience in this board, and I think Stan has is second in line for that, simply because he's done a lot of work for us here. He knows the system pretty well, and I agree with you and Jeff that vice chairman should go to you. Therefore, let's have one motion here that I'll move that
motion that Bill Mersing remain chairman for the year.
I second that.
Thank you, Jeff. That motion passes. Good. Suzanne Kinsey has been very capable of managing our financial affairs, and with Suzanne's own approval, I'd like to see that continue for another year. Can I have a motion for that? That's a good news, Suzanne.
I would make a motion that we continue with Suzanne for another year. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you guys, we have appointed chairman, vice chairman, and secretary?
And as secretary, no, we don't appoint secretary yet. We'll do that next meeting.
You
Can I have a
probably
motion
missed
for that?
it, Michelle's was on. Okay.
I'll move that Suzanne stay on as financial manager here. I'll second that.
Second. All right.
That motion passed. Thank you all, appreciate it. Again, public comment and jumping on there, I understand. Anybody else who have a little word with us about anything? Thank you. Last month's minutes.
I've read the minutes and would make a motion for approval.
Okay, no amendments. Can I have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
So that motion is approved too. And it passed. Good. Suzanne, go ahead.
We have an additional set of approvals for this month. We have warrants that we are deeming 2014 expenses and will be put in the 2014 books, both in the county and in our financial statements. And as well, we have warrants for 2015. We've never done this before, by the way. The water district does it every year. So I think it's a good, more accurate way of reporting, and I'm pleased that Chief Carlton made this decision. The payables for 2014 year-end total $31,791.21, which includes a couple of items to point out. U.S. Bank Core, our credit card, for $10,489, emergency equipment, $3,500, Puget Sound Energy, $1,161, Gear Grid, $1,900, Life Tech, $2,476. Volunteer payouts that are included in 2014 warrants total $7,401. This reflects December 2014 activity as well. There were a couple of payouts in there that went back to earlier in 2014. And there are no payouts in the warrants for 2015 because 2015 is reflecting 2015. I think I confused myself. Payroll for December totals $15,153.67. This represents 1 month's salary for Chief Carlton, 1 month's salary for Assistant Chief Shields. And there was 1 meeting for 3 commissioners. The secretary had 1 meeting. Volunteer payouts in payroll total $7,948 for a total payout of volunteers of $15,349. The volunteer payouts in payroll are 2014 activity. However, I can't do a payroll anymore for 2014 because payroll is what we're in right now. Financial statements will not be out till the end of the month. That's the ones for December. We require motions to approve warrant requests covering 2014 year-end warrants as well as current month vouchers and current month payroll.
Thank you.
So gear grid, we purchased 6 more lockers, and that's the red lockers that line the walls for our firefighters to put their gear in. Life Tech is for CPR training, different supplies. And then US Bancorp, it's 10,000. 6,000 of that is due to Crucial Conversations, the course that I'm offering here within the district. So the conversation course, if you remember the one I went to become an instructor in down in San Diego. So that type of instruction is being offered here now. So about 6,000 of that is worth. Crucial Conversations, that's the cost of each member, about $265 per member is for the material for that course, the books, and the participants binder. So that adds up over time.
Chief, are you offering another course this month?
Yeah, so hopefully towards the end of this month or early next month, I'll be offering my second course. And then in March, I'll be offering my third course to complete my instructorship with Vital Smarts. And then continuing that throughout the year. It's just being able to plan it. My desire is to have all of my officers go through this. I would appreciate, I know Chairman Mersing sat through the first part of it. He has the second day to complete in this course coming up. But I'd like it if all my commissioners would sit in it as well, anybody else within the organization too. And would also, once the organization is done, extend that to the community. But then the community members would have to pay for the booklets.
Can you just briefly tell me what it's about?
So Crucial Conversations is a international course, and the book itself is one of the best-selling books on what it states is Crucial Conversation. And that's how to keep people in a feeling of being safe, being able to discuss anything with almost anybody, regardless of the topic, where in management and in our personal day-to-day operations in our personal lives and adding that to our professional lives, it allows us to communicate better. And with our patients, with management, with officers, with any degree within your personal relationships too. So the first class I had 10 people from this organization go through it. And the feedback that I'm getting not only helps them here on the organization with the interactions with the community and with their shift, but it's actually impacting them greatly within their personal relationships and the jobs that they hold full-time. So I offer it to their wives, if their wives want to come, but I will not pair them up during the class. So
That's a game show.
they would be in separate groups during the course. But it's been a positive, and hopefully I'll be able to extend that into the next courses coming up.
Will you let us know when this occurs?
Absolutely, I'll send out emails to you with the dates.
I've had one day of that course, and how much it's quite interesting. Some interesting discussions, can fall up. Kind of an eye-opener.
A big portion of that is about mutual respect, mutual purpose, and understanding that it asks for a question, what's important to myself, what's important for the relationship, what's important for others, and what's important for the organization itself. So if you can answer all of those questions, you're able to communicate better and try to get on the same page as your significant other or how the organization is being run. And that's not just this organization, but it's any organization that they work for in their professional lives.
I guess this would be okay now for someone who's dating too.
Okay, so we're starting down that track here. It's
We're
going
not
well.
to that part of the agenda
And,
yet. No, that's down here. We're not even to this piece yet.
It doesn't.
You're gonna have to wait for it.
She does plan on paying the fee and coming to the course, so at some point.
I'm gonna call a point of order here that we're not to that. That's down here where we've got the 118, which is gonna require some.
Next.
We're still in the financial aspect here. Could you tell me what emergency equipment is?
Emergency equipment, so the 3,500 is actually, so we got donated a quad. And that quad was donated by one of our members, the Tersakians. And we have purchased now a Stokes stretcher trailer to be able to hook up to it and haul behind it. In order to evacuate somebody from the trails, we need to, instead of trying to carry them out a half mile or 3/4 of a mile, or drag them out. This trailer is a 2-wheel trailer that hooks into the back of the ATV, and it has suspension on it to where we can put the Stokes basket or the backing splint and have them lay in that and be able to drive them out versus have to try to carry them out, especially when we're lacking personnel. So that's that trailer, and that comes from a national organization that builds those pretty specifically.
We'll build a trailer and be available.
Trailer is 5 days out from being shipped. I talked to them today, so we should have it by, I would have to say, the next meeting at least.
Okay.
And then we have an ATV program, educational program and training that will be being conducted probably the first part of second quarter in April before summer hits and we start getting all the hikers out and stuff to where the safety course will be conducted. Certain members will be allowed to operate the ATV and the stretchers too. We've been offered by Border Patrol. They have an ATV team. They've actually offered to come up and give us additional training once we get our initial training done and teach us little tricks of the trade on how to haul trailers, to be safer with the trailer and the patient behind, and different other safety techniques that they have with their team. So I'm hopefully be able to tap into that and have the Border Patrol come here and offer us some additional training.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, now we need a couple of motions.
Yeah, I can't put these motions together and make any logical sense of them. Can you? You're asking for three things here, Susan.
I'm asking
Yeah.
for some information before we get to the.
Okay, I'm sorry, please.
Okay,
Okay, go ahead.
Suzanne,
Yeah.
can you give me a little bit more detail about the posting of charges in 2 years? You said that,
In 2 years?
no, for
Okay.
2 years. That you had some,
2 different years?
yeah,
Yeah. The county makes it available to us to submit 2014 expenses, which they will put through in 2014 as long as they receive them by January the 20th. And at that point in time, they'll do the warrants, and then the cutoff for 2014 will be complete, and there will be no more activity in 2014. So that's what this $31,000 is.
it's what's still open after the closing? Is that what you're saying?
It's open until January the 20th. 2014 has not been closed by the county. That's why we're always so late getting financials for December, because they hold it open until the 20th of
Is
January.
there a class of expenses held over?
No, anything that you want to put through for 2014.
It basically gives us another couple of weeks to finish the year off.
Yeah, because bills come in, you know how it is in the business, right?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I would argue against it, but if the county wants to do it this way,
No, we want to do it this way. Chief Carlton wants to do it this way, and I support him in that.
what is the reason? What's
Because
the rationale?
these are 2014 expenses, and it's good that they're being reflected in the year that they occur.
That's my assumption too.
Yeah. Why do you disagree then?
It's an extension, Jeff, basically. They give us 20 days more to finish the
I
year off.
understand, it's fine.
So we're all clear then. I mean, the books are clean and clear.
Yeah. So anything that transpired in 2014 up to December 31st, we're making sure is paid in the budget with 2014 to have a more accurate reflection on the expenses that were received in 2014. So we're not carrying it over into the 2015 year budget.
I get it,
Yeah,
thank you.
you're welcome.
It makes a lot of sense.
One more question. No, that comes in unfinished business. I'll get it back to you. see a little later.
Okay.
I would second the motion.
Oh, I didn't even get started yet. There's three items that we have to approve here. Suzanne, help me through with this.
Okay, the first one is the
Payables.
2014 year-end warrants for $31,791.21.
Yes, okay, that's the
That's
first
the
one.
first one.
Okay, and the second one is,
2015 warrants,
okay, for 15,000?
where am I?
What was the payroll?
No. Payroll. Did I not put that in my report?
I just don't think it's there.
It's 738939.
No.
Sorry. Okay, so I need to add that to the report.
7839?
2015 warrants are $7,339.39. 733939. I'm sorry, you guys.
Well, see, that's why I was confused.
Well, I can understand why you're confused. I was confused writing this thing.
Okay, so then that's the 2015
That's the
warrants.
2015.
Okay, then the second motion would be to approve warrants for 2015
That's right.
for $7,339.39.
That's right.
Okay.
And I'll rewrite this report.
And then the third part of, or the third motion, which we'll all vote on at once, is to approve payroll for December, which totals $15,153.67.
Good, that completes that. Do you have a second for that?
Yes, sir. Second.
Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Thanks, Suzanne. I can see that was a little confusing. Chief, correspondence?
Correspondence, there were some emails that I received concerning the possible flooding down on the Maple Beach area during the November high tides. And Delta Fire Rescue actually delivered a lot of sand, which packed about 800 sandbags for us. And I activated the CERT team, and a number of those, 5 or 6 of those members, came to the hall. Once they were activated, the page went out to them, they responded, and they helped us do that. None of those sandbags were used. There is yearly flooding down on Maple Beach, especially one of the homes. I think it sits right on the corner of Elm Street and Bayview Drive. It's a greenhouse, and he's very well that everything under his whole yard floods on a yearly basis, and it's been doing that for probably as long as we've been having flooding down there when he's built. He understands that. There's one community member that pumps out from underneath his house, and he pumps it back into the ocean, but it doesn't help. And he stops pumping when the water's coming over, because what he's pumping into the ocean comes back over the wall, so he's kind of running against a brick wall, trying to pump out from under his house. So really, everybody kind of relaxed. They let the high tides go down, then we see where the flooding is and try to help if we can do that. I've been approached on possibly going down there with the apparatus or with a pump to try to help pump out some of these yards, but it's amazing the process that happens. If we took our engines down there, we risk damaging the pumps because we're drawing up grass, we're drawing up rocks, we're drawing up a whole bunch of things. It's not a clear water source. So I don't want to damage one of our pumps and then have a $10,000 bill trying to repair that. Some pump might work better, but it's amazing to see where the water travels because he pumps out probably 3 different yards. So they all drain into his. And so the water level in his neighbor's yard starts going down. And when he starts pumping out his yard, because he's drawing from both properties. So he's really helping his neighbor out too. And we haven't got into that because I don't want to spend the resources and have an engine out of service when we still have water coming over that wall. Now, if we ever have a home that physically starts being flooded on the internal area of it, we would definitely go down there, assist, and help salvage any of their furniture, items that are of importance to them if they want to get out of the house that would not be water damaged. But everybody pretty well knows not to have anything under their home because of the potential of flooding. We have had a lot of logs pile up. towards the south end of Bayview Drive on the private drive there of those homes. A lot of driftwood came ashore during this storm in November. So that's a concern, and there are some community members that would like to burn it. By state statute, it's illegal to burn driftwood, and a lot of people don't know that. They've been doing it for years, and sometimes we have to go down there and let them know that. And then the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries usually gets approached to see how that driftwood is going to be taken off so it doesn't pose a danger if somebody would decide to start it on fire, or if another storm comes in and washes over the wall and starts impacting their homes. That's an ongoing issue with that. So that's so those are the correspondences really that I've received in December.
Thank you. Your report, Chief.
So the chief's report for December 2014, reporting in January 2015. I have a number of point of informations, and part of that is the radio paging that I'll get to. The first one is roof replacement. For point of information, I sent out an email to you all just for information, stating that the roof replacement project is scheduled to start on January 19th. So I think this is coming up Monday. If the weather is bad for some reason, they have a contingency of a couple days after that they would start, but hopefully next week that roofing project will be on its way. Station security, so everybody knows about that happens, the Firefighters Association funds. The tragedy, I think, turned into a huge plus for the food bank. The generosity of this community is overwhelming because of that tragedy, but it doesn't allow us to just shrug our shoulders and not do anything to secure the station. So we are working on a solution at this point, and I've gone out for another estimate. The first estimate we have is around $16,000 in order to put cameras that would cover the two apparatus upstairs towards one particular area of the upstairs due to what's within that area. This room, which would cover the back doors, so it would protect or it would identify anybody coming in the back doors that may want to force entry into the back door of the clinic over there, and then a camera that would cover the entire parking lot outside. We would also have fob key access, which would be little electronic keychains instead of a code, because if you punch enough, you might be able to figure out a code on a door. And the fob keys would be given to every single member. They're turned off remotely. So if a member left or a member lost one, I could turn their card off so no one else could ever use that, and then reissue a card. There's certain doors within this station. It would be financial door, the main office door, the main entrance door as well, and then a door upstairs that would really only have the paramedics being fobbed for that access. But I can assign that key that member would have permission to open up all doors that are fobbed or just specific ones, depending on their position within this organization. So I haven't got an estimate back from the second company I've approached with the cameras to see if we can save some money within that. I hope to have the process completed by next commissioners meeting to report to you that installation will be being conducted at that meeting. So January is marked to try to get the cost down and exact to where if somebody enters the station, they will be coming into contact with a camera at some point in vital areas of the station, and hopefully be able to identify them off of that as well. So that's the secure station security. 5802 was repaired, so we had that huge leak. Olson Body Shop, it actually came from $2,000, a little over $2,000. We were reimbursed by insurance around $1,400, if I believe. That check went into our general. So I think it was around $1,400.
I think so.
$1,200 or $1,400. So it went over because they had to do some extra work that they found when they put it through their deluge. So they basically dumped it in a lot of rain. They have this place in their body shop that they can pour water on or make it really, really rain, and it leaked from a lot of areas. So they had to replace the windshield and taper on the windshield, and everything's good now. It should not leak on people driving down the road at this point. Pre-plans are developed. So something I've been working on the last year, which the organization's never had in place, is pre-plans for our heavy fire load areas. That would include this station. It would also include the marketplace, all the fuel stations, all the postal or mailing businesses that we have here as well, and the marina, to name a few. Rebecca Hathaway, which is the wife of one of our previous members, has been one of our ambassadors, but her specialty is actually in investigations. She worked for the, if I'm correct, the Canadian Provincial Police as one of their investigators, and then she was just recently hired, and I had the privilege of giving her a reference, but just recently hired with the city of North Vancouver in their pre-incident plans department within that city. So she has all the software and stuff, and she's been going around we sent out letters to all, in Nielsen's parties. We sent out letters back in November, and we hand-delivered a lot of them, but we sent out letters asking the business owners to be open to allowing us in, to allowing Rebecca in. And they had an informational sheet that they had to fill out with if they had hazardous materials, what their fire load was, if they had flammable materials, what the size of their structure was, what type of framing their structure was. So this went off of what a normal pre-plan does, but we cut it down to one page. Then she took pictures of all four sides of the building to show us our officers, if we pull up, that we can open up the book, know where the fuel shutoffs are at the fuel stations, know where the gas shutoffs are if they have propane coming into their home, where the propane tanks are. All of this is going to benefit and make us safer and put less risk upon our responders if we know exactly where to go inside of the building to shut off the electrical, to shut off anything that poses an increased danger to us. So this has been going on since, I'd have to say, if not November, before November, October, September maybe, of last year. We've really put our feet down, and it's coming to completion now for this next practice. Those will be one-page documents, which will have all the information of the business on the front page. On the back page, it will have the pictures. So we can go to one page on Nielsen's, understand where the heavy fire loads are, all the electrical, gas shutoffs, anything that we need to disconnect before we start interior fire operations, and that'll be a plus. So I'm really happy about this, but she's really put in a lot of work, and her name is Rebecca Hathaway, and she's doing it on a volunteer basis. Radio paging. So as you know, this has been an ongoing issue. Even before I became the fire chief here, we've had radio problems. And I've sent out numerous emails to the FARS committee, which oversees the emergency response radio system here in FARS.
F-A-R-S?
Yes, FARS. And for the most part, I've just gotten reasons why we don't have the service that we should have up here. I wouldn't go, maybe I don't want to call them excuses, but reasons that they're coming up with, that they don't have the finances. We just have to deal with the problems that we have. There's no plans on putting a tower up here because it doesn't benefit anybody else. So Lummi Island received a grant that was put together, I think, by them and possibly District 8. They received a grant to put a radio system in on Lummi. But believe it or not, even though it's really high on Lummi, it doesn't help us. But it does help out the western part of Bellingham. And possibly, I think, the Lummi Reservation is where it helps. So it helps multiple agencies when you're talking about the money that was spent. Here, it'd be $50,000 to $60,000 is the approximation. It could be plus or minus 20 or even more of that, probably to the plus mark, depending on the system we would need to put in here in order to have 99.9% efficiency on that first key from a portable for our people. Right now, I'm working with Curtis out of Northwest Communications, who is part of the county radio system. He works on it with the city of Bellingham, who are pretty much the two people that work on the system, city of Bellingham and Curtis. And Curtis, as far as I understand, is contracted by FARS or contracted by the county to be the county's representative in regards to emergency communications. We just received today a radio that we're going to be testing from all points of our land here to see what type of reception we're getting. There's two possibilities that we're looking at right now. And those possibilities are putting a tower, such as Ham is doing on the water district's tower up here because it's very high, or utilizing our base station here if we're able to communicate off of 5 watts from anywhere on the point. 5 watts is what the handheld radios are. We have 110 watts. When we hit the button here, from this base station, it sends out a signal for a radio transmission at 110 watts. So nobody ever has a problem hearing us if we're keying up here. The problem is keying up on scene from our portable radios. And we're unable to get out. It seems to have gotten worse after the narrowbanding went into place with our radios. And that happened a year or 2 ago that we had to switch everything over to narrowbanding. That was a federal requirement. But I'm hoping that either the testing that's going to be done, if we are not successful with the testing that we're currently doing off of our base station, if we're unable to receive clear enough communications from anywhere on the point back to our base station, then we will have to go with something on the water tower or decide to purchase our own tower that would increase the height of our antenna here and put it on fire district property. This is something that's going to be done in January. So again, hopefully in February, I'll have more to report, or that we have a sound solution in February to report to you, and that we're moving forwards, and that the project will be completed by the end of the first quarter. Paging, to get to your question, we haven't had a call that we haven't been able to get somebody through the front door within the average response time, which is within 7 minutes. That one person has had their pager activate. The issue that we've had over the last few years is additional people receiving pages and not receiving those pages, not knowing that a call is going on, and not responding to the scene to assist that primary person that arrived first.
Right.
So,
is that going out to the pagers or the radio? Or the two
pagers.
Okay.
So we communicate off of Fire 2. Okay, so that's a radio channel that's programmed. We have license for. Prospect communicates with us. We have that in our radio system. We're paged off of Fire 1. Okay, so just to let you know, there's 16 plus or more channels within our radio system. We have 16 channels built into one band. We have 3 bands. So you're looking at probably anywhere from, we have 16 channels per band. So right now, however many, 3 times 16, so 48 channels that we have access to. And that includes Coast Guard, Customs, police bands, but we have to switch over to different bands in order to access those channels. We stay on band A, which has the majority of the channels we use all the time, basically. We never have to switch over unless we have that major disaster. Then we have medical channels that are on another band that we may have to switch over to, so we don't supersede the capability or not have the ability to communicate because everybody's trying to talk on the same channel. So it's a complicated, and they have to go very slow with me so I can understand the process that's trying to be spoken or the education that's being given to me, so I can try to produce that education for other people. But there's still a lot about the radio system that we don't all know, and that's FAR's responsibility. So hopefully in February, I'll come back and be able to tell you that due to the testing we're currently doing, either we're able to use our base station or we're going to have to approach the water district to come under agreement to put something such as Ham is doing on the radio tower there, or that we decide to purchase our own tower of sorts just to increase the height of our antenna, because the issue that we have is all the trees. Believe it or not, the signal going through the trees is an issue. You wouldn't think so, but the trees cause interference with the signal. If this was solid open land, I think we'd be golden on our communications, but it's not. And we have height and we have loads on point rockets. Anytime we try to communicate from below the cliff, we're going to have problems, because that's trying to hit the towers either across the water, or it's trying to come back here to our base station to be able to be sent out. That's where I need to probably end the conversation on we have two issues, radio communication and paging. They're two separate problems that have to get solved. Just correcting the paging system would be excellent, right? Because then we know our volunteers are receiving the pages, and they would be able to get there within a few minutes of that first person arriving. That's one thing, so that's very, very important. But the second part of that is we have to figure out an improvement or solving the issue of our radio communications. Right now, we're having to repeat ourselves 2 or 3 times on scene in order for Prospect, which is our dispatch center, to hear us or understand what we're trying to get to them as a message. A lot of times, we're having to pick up the phone, and if we have phone service, depending on where we're at on the point, we're having to call Prospect directly and relay our information, and then they relay it to the incoming paramedic unit or incoming BLS unit. So that's the issue. The last thing I want to see happen, and that's why I've put a stop point of the first quarter of this year, that we need to decide or have a solution in place, and then decide what, if we have to spend money out of our capital reserves, or if we're able to, it'll be a capital expense anyway we go, obviously, but to what extent do we need to spend? And I don't have those numbers for you yet. I don't want to speak and just give approximates when it could be plus or minus in a lot of thousands either way. So I want to have more of a formalized report for you, and hopefully I can have that by February. And then we can move forwards with the decision and then have it completed before the end of March. But it puts my responders and myself as well, because I'm a user of the system too, and I've had that frustration on scene, to where I'm trying to speak to Prospect off of our portables, and they're not receiving what I'm trying to ask for. And that could be additional resources, dispatching Delta Fire Rescue because we have a structure fire, dispatching BC Ambulance because we need additional resources on the medical, or the biggest issue would be if somebody was trapped and had to call a Mayday. And the first click of that radio, when they say Mayday on their first key, is not heard, and Prospect comes back and asks them to repeat the traffic because it was unreadable. They may not be able to do that because they go unconscious, and we may not have heard that on the scene as well. The other situation that is high is the request for law enforcement. If we get into a situation and we're threatened on scene and we need law enforcement, and we only have one opportunity to key the radio and say 858, law enforcement requested, and then that's all we can talk because of the situation that we're in. That's what we have to correct. And the request for Area Northwest. But I know this has been a long process. It definitely is not moving as fast as I want it to move. I'm very stickler on efficiency, and this has been going on for a number of years now, and before my time frame here. So this quarter, talking with Curtis, I made it very pointed that we have to have a solution in place.
Good, thank you for your
Can I ask you a quick question, just to follow up? Would you allow me? You mentioned 99% efficiency is your goal for radio communication.
Will I ever get that? That is my dream.
Okay, but if that's your dream, what do you have now? Ballpark.
on first key,
Yeah.
and then being able to hear us off our portable.
Yeah, because I mean, you're talking about that, if you've got a guy with a gun to a
From my
firefighter's
experience,
face, you need that.
Me being on scene, in
Mhm.
my experience,
Mhm.
probably 50% or less.
Okay.
To where we don't have to key up 2 or 3 times in order for them to hear us.
And then my second and final question, with the pagers, I want to be really sure I understand this. When the something goes out, everybody's pager goes off.
It's supposed to go off.
Okay, everybody's pager is supposed to go off, and then the first person goes to the scene?
So the first person I'm speaking of would be the EMT on duty.
Okay.
So that's here, we have an EMT on duty every single day of the week.
So the pager goes off, the EMT on duty goes to the place.
That's correct. They would respond immediately from the station, or if they're at home because they're having lunch or they're doing errands. That's where that paging system is so critical, that their pager is kicked, it's tripped, and then it alerts them that there's a call. It's not only that it's tripped, because we can hear it go off, right? But then we can't hear what the dispatch is saying, because it's all static.
Because that's pager, not radio.
Correct.
Okay.
So this is pager that we, even though it's been tripped, there's a lot of times to where we can't hear because prospect's voice will come through our pager. Okay, and they're telling us what the address is and what the nature of the call is through this little device here that's on our hip. So this device right here. We can't communicate through this, so this is not a radio. Okay.
I'm going to take your picture.
This just, you really have to take.
Come on, show me the pager.
So this is our pager.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. And this is not a radio though. So this will page, this will vibrate, whatever setting they have it on. It makes a big loud noise. And it's gone off once or twice in the last couple of years during a meeting. But loud noise, and then we listen to hear what prospect is going to say to us. The problem is, because of our reception of our paging system, the lack of the signal is not allowing prospect to come across this the majority of the time for us to hear what they're saying. So there, if our members are out on the point, they have to come up on their mobiles. So we have portables and we have mobiles. Our portables are what we carry into the house. Our mobiles are what are in the vehicles. Okay?
Now we're moving to radio.
Yeah. So then the volunteer has to come up on the radio and ask for prospect to repeat the address and the nature of the call so they can hear it and go to the scene. If they're inside the station, they may be able to bring it up on our computers because we have the CAD system, which is a dispatch screen, and we have access to that to where if they're sitting there and it goes off, they can click on it and bring up the address and the nature of the call right on the computer screen and then respond.
Okay, if they're at the scene, the EMT is at the scene and says, oh no, I need help. And then they call on the portable if that works, or the mobile if that doesn't work.
Right.
And then other people are paged.
Yeah.
So if this doesn't work or that doesn't work and then the pagers don't work, nobody shows up.
That's correct. Yeah, because even though they request for additional responders, or they ask for a second tone or a third tone, if that tone's not reaching the additional volunteers that are carrying pagers, and their pagers are not being tripped, they don't have any idea that there's a call on the point. So,
It falls down in 3 separate places.
right. Now, our radio communication from our mobiles, the other issue with that is that if they've made patient contact, they've made it inside to the house and they've started treating the patient. If they're unable to get out on their portable radio, that means they may have to leave the patient in order to go out to the ambulance and get on the mobile radio in the ambulance in order to contact prospect to request additional tones or whatever additional resources that they need. So that means that if we have a critical patient on the inside, if we have CPR in progress, they may have to leave that patient, stop the chest compressions, go back out to their mobile apparatus, which would be the battalion or an engine or the ambulance, get on that radio, then go back in and start treatment on that patient again, or resume the treatment that they started in the first place.
I'm clear then, thank you.
Yeah.
Chief, quick question. Do you know who owns the tower that's behind the station up by?
Yeah, so the Verizon Tower is owned by SBA. I don't know what that stands for. We've made numerous contacts, both I have and both Curtis have. They've stated that they're very willing to allow us to put a antenna and equipment on that tower. But then, once they stated that, we have nobody returning our emails or returning our phone calls from SBA. That is something that, from this point forwards till the end of the month, because that would even get us higher, okay, than the water tower is going to provide for us if we have to go to the water tower. The SBA tower would even get us higher up, and that would improve our overall signal, because anytime we can't get above the trees, that signal is being disrupted through those trees.
Have you contacted the telephone about their tower?
Whidbey, that was done years ago. So they had no interest years ago when we approached, and then I myself have not. Actually, that's a very good recommendation.
Your management?
So Whidbey might be another source for us, which I really didn't even consider because of the previous attempt we had with them before my time. I think that's a great option that I need to pursue.
There's always a possibility that in the negotiations for some space in the tower, that we play hardball and basically tell them we'll take all their customers away.
We'll start a phone company.
It would make us very popular in the community, because this isn't just an emergency response. This is our internet and
Right.
Well, Chief, just check into it to see what you can do there.
Yeah.
Just keep that, the end of the first quarter in mind.
Absolutely. That's my goal, is in the first quarter, that in April, I can report to you that the system is fixed to the best of our ability, and that we have more efficiency now than we have ever had in our time. So, again, time frame is somewhat out of my control. I can push and push and push, but if I don't have the people that are the technicians that can get up here and install the equipment that we need, then my hands are a little bit tied.
Who does FAR's answer to?
I don't know.
That's a good point. I bet it goes back to Olympia. And I bet you could shake a tree down there real fast. This story, when you say 50%, God, that's horrible.
And that's an honest number. I would have to agree, Foddy's here. I've heard him have to come up on the radio multiple times. Even in our ambulances, we've had to come back once or twice. And that's a 75, I think, I want to say 75 watt. Okay, I could be speaking really, really wrong here, so bear with me on the watts.
I'm going to ignore all of them.
It's a, yeah, please, yeah. I'm just saying it's a lot more powerful than what we have on our portables. But even in the mobile, we've had difficulties sometimes, depending on where we're at the point, if we're over a bluff, if we're down a hill, and we're trying to reach over that hill to
Like Crystal
contact.
Water Beach.
Yeah, to contact that tower. It depends, but he can speak to the difficulties he's had as well, as long as every other member could probably be standing here and giving you a story about multiple repeats on radio communication. And it's very frustrating. And again, I'm an end user of this system, and if I have a critical patient and I'm treating at my level, and I really need something, or I need to get a hold of somebody, not having that communication could be detrimental.
Is there a cell phone, temporary solution, cell phone communication, Nextel?
Yeah, we have cell phones. So the district has 2 cell phones. One is for EMTs, the other is for the duty officer. And they're all Verizon. So we came underneath Verizon when they put the tower here, and we're under service with them. And almost everywhere we have a signal that we can get out. Fadi, do you know of an area that...
Not in the back.
My house.
Okay, north of the tower. Okay, so let me tell you about
My
that.
house.
Yeah, north of the tower, where are you located?
We can't get it.
Oh, you're located right out here, right down here.
Yep.
Yeah, so definitely north of the tower. Okay? The interesting thing, because I've had discussions with Verizon too, the interesting thing with that is that it's a fight between them and the Canadian services. So if they boost their signal north, and Roger or TELUS or Bell gets a hold of that and realizes their signal's draining over into Sawasan, then they boost their signal to the south, which overrides the Verizon signal down here. So people start jumping around, between the services and roaming and not roaming and everything else. Where they're supposed to be able to south, they should be able to be at full strength going to the south. But even out at the marina, we have difficulty with some signals down there. And Judy, you're saying that you have difficulties
Across
right
the
here
sheriff's station, we can't get it.
at South Beach. So even with a cell phone, I can't say that I have ever not been able to get out on my cell phone because I don't believe there's been that circumstance. Have I dropped a call? Yes, but then I've had to redial it and I've been able to reconnect. But other than that, cell phone would be our next option.
So your initial call coming from Prospect, does it come here to the station on your landline plus your pagers, or?
It comes over the waves. So it's not the cloud, right, that everybody's backing up to now, but it's in space. So it comes over radio transmission, and that radio transmission comes to our pagers, and our pagers have different settings in them to accept that radio transmission, and they're supposed to alert us that a call is. But depending on where we're at, how many trees or the topography that radio transmission has to go through or over dissipates it to where Christina Tersakian up on McKenzie her pager may not activate inside of her home because it didn't reach her. So that would not be a positive thing because she lives here, right? So we have responders that have pagers that live over the line too, right over the other, right into Swassen on the south side of Swassen, and they respond within usually 7-8 minutes if they pagers activate for them on the first initial page. That's what I need that my preference would be to get to 99% is first activation on first dispatch versus having to repeat that and hope that finally the wind is blowing in the right direction and it gets to the pager.
Thank you.
I don't know of a call in my time here, I've been here since 2010, that a call has completely been missed. That we've always gotten 1 or 2 people to the scene on that initial pager. It's the available additional help that is starting to become possibly an issue, that we can't get more people there. And if we have to move a patient from inside of the home, usually 2 people are not able to do that effectively.
Anything else?
Apparatus, engine 58's inverter went out. That happened this last month. I just purchased it today though, but to report that, Chief Shields is working on installing that, and that was a $1,200 expense for an inverter for engine 58. What does that mean? It means it runs our lights, and it also runs the electrical outlets that we use for extension cords to set up exterior lights if necessary on a scene. And all those went out. Again, that rig is a 1994 rig, so it is now 21 years old in 2015. So things are going to start, it's cost of doing business with older apparatus and the upkeep that we're running into. Again, to remind you, hopefully we're able to get 1 or both of our AFG grants this year or next year in the coming years. I'll continue putting in AFG grants. We have that AFG grant in for a new engine. That grant is worth over $400,000, and then the AFG grant in for the SCBAs, which is roughly $140,000 for our SCBA replacement. Nothing else to report on any of the other vehicles. In the fleet, we still have 44 members, 31 Canadians, 7 Point Roberts, 3 County. Of that, 4 paramedics, 15 EMTs, 3 ambassadors, and we have 36 firefighters in our ranks. Just so you understand, the majority of those, though, are Canadians, are coming from the Canadian side. Volunteer hours for December of 2014, 2,500. Volunteer payroll was right at 14,000 if everybody was getting paid. Combined chief hours, I worked 118 even. Assistant Chief Shields, 115 and a half. Total hours, 272.5. Are you okay with those hours?
Slap it all there.
Let's just talk for a while. Let's see how it goes.
Relationship's going great. So Yeah, crucial conversations there, but it's going good. Total calls for December was 14. EMS calls, we had 10. We had 3 Point Robert transports to St. Joseph's Hospital. We had 3 no transports. We had Whatcom Medic 1, we had 1. In Ferndale Department, we had 2. We had no public service. We did have agency assist with law enforcement. They pepper sprayed an individual and they had him up at the border. And we went up there and helped flush out his eyes and his face from the pepper spray. We had 4 fire classifications. We had 1 structure fire that we responded to. The fire had self-suppressed by the time we had arrived. The fire marshal did come up and do an investigation on that. The home was open, was not secured. It looked like somebody went inside that home and tried to start a pile of newspapers on fire, which did catch a corner of a sofa, but it was able to self-suppress. The homeowners came home and noticed the smoke layer in the house and the smoke smell. It wasn't still active by any means, but the staining on the walls from the smoke, so it had good potential, but it was something that we saw out before we arrived. And we had 3 smoke investigations, and that concludes my fire chief report for December.
I have a question, Chief. Regarding your Canadian volunteers and the hours that they put in their enumeration,
Yes.
do they have they all filled out the required paperwork so that we don't get into another situation like last year? Some of them cannot get paid.
Yes. So anybody that's getting paid has had to go through the I-10 process. And when they get the individual tax identification number, they actually fill out more paperwork to where the county can pay them and put them on, if I'm speaking correctly, a vendor status. You got to get a vendor number for them. So our Canadian volunteers actually have vendor numbers with Whatcom County. If you guys remember, our payroll, they go through warrants. Our Canadians go through warrants. And our payroll, myself, anybody that has a social security number, goes through Paychecks, which is our payroll company, which we had to transfer over 2 years ago? 2 years ago, because the county stopped doing that side of the work. Payroll, or there were some big complications that were starting to happen. Lummi Island has contacted us, and they're having to go through the same process. The fire chief there has spoken to Suzanne, and they're looking at other avenues. They're using the county as well, because now they're being hit with the same issues. So anybody that's getting paid, we still have volunteers that don't have their I-10 numbers, so they are not getting paid their stipends. And now we have in place that the year stipend, as long as you get in your I-10, or you can show that you had that you were awarded a process of an I-10 by the December commissioners meeting, we will pay you out those stipends for that year. But if it's processed after, so December 8th, we had somebody that their paperwork was processed on December 8th. That I will acknowledge, and I will pay them out their 2014 year stipends. But if they get it on December 9th, or after that commissioners meeting, some people procrastinate. We've had people here 2.5 years, that still don't have their I-10s, and then they want to be paid out, their stipends, but now we go year to year. So,
Okay, do we offer them information as to how to get the I-10 number?
absolutely.
Okay.
Every member that comes on this organization is bombarded with that. And we provide them the paperwork, we provide them the guidance on how to do that, and also we have mentors who have gone through the process that help them. So it's truly up to them to take upon the responsibility if they want to get paid out the stipends they're accruing. The district, we're doing everything to educate them and allow them to have that process completed.
Now, I'd like to go back to something, if I may. Back to this pager situation. Would it be of any help for us to purchase 10 or 20 cell phones right now to get us by temporarily, immediately?
I will say no to that.
Okay, just an idea.
There is, we tested it's called, if I remember correctly, it's called e-dispatch. And we tested that, which it puts another box here at the station. but it would accept the signal, so this is interesting. It's kind of a radio within itself. It would accept the signal that Prospect was sending out on the same radio frequency, and that box would be programmed, but then it would actually dispatch off our phones. So it would come to our phones as a text message or a phone call. I could set up either one or the two. It's something I may, depending on what happens with our testing and how well we're able to get the system. Because there's going to be a final point that the system, we're going to get to a point, and we can't get any better than that, just because of our location. But I want to get to as good as possible within our paging and our radio communication with a system of some sort. Whether that's on the SBA tower, Verizon tower, which is also the Verizon tower, or the water department, or using our antenna here. If we still have gaps, I will have to look to go back to that addition to our dispatching, that it would come to our cell phones, and at that point, the EMT on duty would be carrying that cell phone, so they would be dispatched not only off their pager, they would also be carrying a cell phone at the same time, so hopefully both would be activated, and they would be alerted. So you'd have a dual system built in place. They'd have a cell phone and a pager on it.
I think my idea is to kind of let you know, and I'm sure all three of us feel that way, that whatever is necessary, even on a temporary basis, cost-wise, don't hold back, because we have lives at stake.
Well, I understand that, and that's why it's a little aggravating to me of the delays and the reasons that we've been given, and it's basically up to us, and there's no money for FARs to put towards our direction. There's not a tower that they would be looking at putting up here, because really, the reason for that would be it doesn't benefit anybody else. It benefits no other organization in the area.
Well, obviously we have to go it alone.
So we do. And I'll tell you, Glacier years ago had to put in a repeater in their station up there because they ran into the same issues. That caused some feedback issues to Prospect. And Prospect was not disrupted, but a little upset, for better words. There's a better word for that, but I wouldn't use upset. That they had this feedback in their operators' ears or back to Prospect, in addition to their problems that they had because they installed a repeater. But they had to install that because they came to an end. That no one else was offering assistance or ideas, and they had to go into it and just do what they had to do for their district. We're at that point right now, that we're going to have to make the decisions, even if it causes some minor conflict with Prospect, that we have to be able to have our responders be notified and be able to request additional or by radio. We have to have that.
Even if we have to go it alone as a temporary solution, we need a solution yesterday.
I agree.
And it's just one of those things. That's our job.
So could I go outside of this county and get somebody else that does radios? Because of the roadblocks I'm running into within either the city of Bellingham, the frustrations that Curtis Moon is running into, trying to cooperate within that whole dynamics there. The answer to that would be probably no, because they would be coming into a system that they would have to acquire contacts in order to work on the emergency radio system here and be added into down in the console at Prospect. And I think that would even set us back further. So trying to work in with the political dynamics that we currently have in this county has been the slowness of getting our issues solved. And the dynamics of the politics, at this point, I have to move ahead regardless of what the politics in place are.
Absolutely. There's no politics in saving a life.
And the last thing I want to have happen is that that key is made on the portable radio, their emergency traffic is not heard, and we have a loss of life, whether that be from a citizen, a visitor, or one of our volunteer members.
Okay, well, Chief, do the best you can, and, everybody knows we have a deadline, and let's stick to that.
I want the chief to know I'm pretty sure all three of us offer full support on this, whatever he feels necessary.
Okay.
I will report to this commission my findings and any potential costs before that true decision is made, because I want you to be,
In your recommendations.
absolutely,
And you don't have to wait for a meeting on this.
I understand,
Okay.
I understand.
I just want to make sure that you hear my point of view on this quickly, which is that we don't do anything precipitously, that overreacting or reacting too quickly or without acting without all the facts may be very insightful, may not. I mean, you can't see what we would do with 12 cell phones that are rotting in the closet. We also have this issue of the three huge towers up at the border crossing. And if you think that we had trouble here connecting with interference and loss of signal, wait, look, we get bombarded with 500,000 watts, and that will require a whole different, and it might require our own television, our own TV.
Sure. I understand, Commissioner, thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Anybody else? No? Okay, unfinished business? No? New business? Then can I have a motion to adjourn?
I would move to adjourn.
Second.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.